no matter what it is, you should just be able to just do that, right? And it is a problem. It is a problem that we're seeing in this administration in terms of just trying to literally clean like the ability to be able to access certain types of history. What we saw with archivists, with certain people that terminated them. The main problem we have is that a lot of the history of the United States, at least, is the people and organizations that are actually, I don't want to say control it, but who, the museums, the Smithsonian Museums, the National Archives, these are all executive branch officials, right, for the most part. The only one that's not is the Library of Congress, right, which we control that in Congress. We've also had some fights about that, not to the extent of the White House. But I think at the end of the day, from a state level standpoint, the federal government can't tell states what, in terms of what to teach, what to do with their historical monuments, right? Like I think it was a great moment in this country. We saw a lot of the Confederate monuments being pulled down, right? And we saw the state responses to them, right? State responses, but they'll stop, they'll find you, originally like $500 a day or something, and then Birmingham was like, okay, we'll pay it. And they were like, well, that's gonna be $25,000 a day or something. And if you go to Tuskegee right now, their Confederate monument just sits with a tar, right? Because they couldn't move. So the federal government can't tell them necessarily what to do. I do think at a federal level that we have an obligation to make sure that we're standing up for preserving that history, making sure that because I was personally concerned, hell, I'm still personally concerned that one day we're gonna wake up with the news story that Donald Trump wants to eliminate the Smithsonian Museum on African American history. Right? That is a legitimate concern that I have. Right? We can't allow that to happen. We can't. Gary, I don't know how many of you have been to that museum. Right? It does a damn good story of documenting like what African Americans have experienced in this country and what African Americans have contributed to this country, right? Which is vital to building our work built by slaves, right? Like literally. We cannot allow that part of American history to go untold, right? Or to go just go off stolen. Tell it in ways that do not explain the realities of the experience of people in this country. That's not just limited to African Americans, right? Like there's a whole history here with whether it's women's history, or Native American history, or the history of poor people in this country, right? Like these are real things that we have to acknowledge in the country, and that we have to respect, and we have to preserve, and we have to tell them. Because if we don't tell them, I think it makes it much easier to see some of the efforts that we're seeing now. People, be actually successful in the future. I mean, we're dealing with an administration right now, and if we look at some of the actions that they're taking from a history standpoint, it's outrageous. Like we got school desegregation. Like, the administration literally is withdrawing the United States government away from school desegregation. Right? School desegregation. Like, it's mind-blowing, right? Battles that we fought back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, we fought desegregation all the way through the 80s and early 90s. But they're withdrawing the United States away from those cases, basically saying we don't need a court order to enforce school desegregation. Right? If we allow that to happen without continuing to tell me about why we need school desegregation, about, because the core of school desegregation was about school funding, right? Because states, after the Brown v. Board, were coming up with very creative ways to not fund the African American education in this country, right? Up to and including threats to close public school systems down entirely. So we just won't have public school systems. So the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that because we got to pay for it. So then they came to a situation where we'll create these sort of weird little lines and tax situations where we'll fund schools, white students will normally fund black students. That is why to this day in the South that school systems are funded via what? Property taxes. Right? All ties back into history, right? And we don't tell it, then 20 years from now they won't know it. If they don't know it, then the policies that they are advocating for won't be informed by it. And so I take it like real personally. I mean, the history side of it, I was a history major. Like it runs really. My father integrated University of Alabama Law School, right? And that was in my dad walked in as one of 7 black students in the University of Alabama Law School in 1969. 1969. I walked in as one of just 16 black students in 2007, right? Progress, but not enough progress, right? Not close to enough, right? But I guarantee you, this 15 of the 16 students that I walked into law school with did not know that in 1969 there were 7. Right? So it's important that we continue to push it, to tell it, to preserve it, to do everything that we can, and that's literally what we're doing. We're doing more of it.